Hello, everybody out there in podcast land. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the show. This episode is brought to you by Transfuse. Transfuse is the only all-natural electrolyte drink that you guys need to have in your cabinets. We love this stuff. We've been using this for an entire season now. This stuff is amazing. I feel great when I drink Transfuse. I drink it every single day. I don't go a day without putting a packet of Transfuse in my water. It's very easy, very portable, easy to travel with, and delicious to drink, which means that you're going to love drinking it and you're going to drink more of it, which is going to be incredibly beneficial to your health. Has magnesium, potassium, sodium, which are all amazing for proper hydration. It has zinc, vitamin C, vitamin B, and choline. These things are incredible cognitive enhancers and immune boosting formulas that you don't want to miss out on, especially in times like this. I'm telling you, I drink Transfuse every single day. I love it. Tyler does as well. Anybody who has tried it has been just pouring with great feedback back to us. There's a reason that they're at all the NXL events, and a lot of the top teams and top professionals are using this product. Do not walk around dehydrated. I never realized how dehydrated I was, even when I was drinking all sorts of water. It's not enough. You need the proper nutrition. You need the right ingredients. Transfuse has done a great job of curating the perfect formula. Transfuse is absolutely spectacular, and for all of our listeners, there is a special deal for any Play the Game listener. If you head over to translabs.com, that's TRANZLABS.com, and use code PLAYTHEGAME at checkout, you will get 10% off. If you subscribe, which means they auto ship you your package every single month, whatever you want, whatever type, whatever flavor, whatever electrolyte formula you desire, they will give you an additional 11% off. So it becomes a 21% discount exclusively for all Play the Game listeners. Huge shout out, and we are incredibly thankful for our supporters. And if you guys would like to go support them, it's translabs.com. Use code PLAYTHEGAME. We are brought to you by Heal Brand. Heal Brand is the best CBD company that we have ever come across. I've been taking CBD products for years now, and I absolutely love it. But Heal Brand has taken my CBD consumption level to the next tier. This stuff is really the luxurious, high-quality, best brand that you're going to come across. Their whole claim to fame is the nanotechnology. It's the real deal. The claim is that through their nanotechnology, the CBD can actually break through the cellular wall and get into the bloodstream much faster and more efficiently. So you need less to do more. Often CBD products, you'll need to take it for a couple weeks before you really start noticing all of the benefits. With this stuff, as soon as you take it, you notice it right away. Within 15, 20 minutes, you're feeling the benefits of CBD. CBD is great for inflammation, anxiety, sleeping, all sorts of different stuff. CBD is really exploding on the scene because it has such a wide variety of benefits. I personally love to use CBD before I go to bed so I can get a full, well-rested night of sleep. Sleep is so crucial. It's so important. If you want to recover well, if you want to fight off depression and anxiety and those unwanted emotions, proper sleep is where you need to start. CBD products really help me do that, and Heal Brand CBD has a wide variety of options of different products, different formulas. It is all natural. It's amazing. This stuff is fantastic. You guys can head over to healbrand.com, check them out, and there is an exclusive offer to all of our PTG listeners. If you use code PLAYTHEGAME at checkout, you'll get 10% off. All right, this is an amazing episode. On this episode of the podcast, we've got Navid Hannanvash, my boy, a longtime friend, and one of the best physical therapists that I've ever worked with. He actually owns a bunch of practices here in San Diego, has been heavily involved in the sports world, truly knows what it takes to compete at the highest levels, has worked with some of the best athletes in the world, and brings a lot of very valuable insight into what you can be doing to perform at higher levels and, have a long-lasting career and promote longevity in your health and wellness. And just an overall amazing dude. You guys are going to love this one. We had a really good time chatting with him. So without further ado, we're going to hop in the show.
That was an insane inside move by Marcelo Margot. Great communication. And the crowd starts chanting Harmon. Great shot by all the guys. So Tyler Harmon saved that game.
He came out with 2 wins. Marcelo Margot was on fire.
Navid, my dude, what's happening, brother?
What's up, fellas?
Hey, bud. How's it going out there?
What's going on, man? Just
Not much.
trying to enjoy this San Diego weather. There we go.
Yeah, it's been pretty nice. We got some really cold rain last week. That was kind of
we had
unprecedented. We had
our
hail.
version of a monsoon.
Yeah, yeah. We had hail up here. Did you guys get hail down there?
No, but we definitely had enough that palm trees and stuff were breaking down and blowing down and caused some damage in the neighborhood. It was crazy.
For sure.
Wow. Yeah, and for the listeners, Bankers Hill is down near downtown, kind of near where Ryan lives. Ryan lives over there in PB. For the listeners, Navid is one of my longtime friends. He has worked with some of the Dynasty guys. Is a physical therapist. Well, I guess ex-physical therapist. Now you just kind of own and operate a bunch of different physical therapy joints. But we thought this was going to be a really valuable show for a lot of the paintball world, because taking care of your body and knowing, injuries are part of sports, and taking care of your body is a huge part of success in sports. And so, in my opinion, there's nobody better. As much shit as I like to give you all the time, that I truly hold you in the highest regard when it comes to that stuff. You've personally helped me overcome injuries in my career. A lot of the listeners know about the knee injuries that I had, and every single time it's always been you right there, and your practices that have gotten me back on the field. So a lot of valuable stuff on this show, I'm sure.
Well, the paintball community owes you a lot, man. Thank you for keeping this
I
guy.
appreciate that. You did lie though. You said in the practices. Half the time we're doing it at your house. I remember
That's
a couple
true.
times.
That's true too.
We're hanging out watching basketball. You're like, man, my elbow hurts. Can you pop it in place for me? I'm like, man. Fine.
I still tell that story because it was just crazy to me that for 8 months my elbow hurt. It just bothered me. I had these issues where it was just this nagging thing, and I once I finally told you about it, you gave me 2 things to do, and it was all good. It was back to normal. I was like, dude, what? I've been suffering this whole time for no reason?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like as a profession, obviously we got in it to help people, but then the longer you're in it, you kind of stop wanting to help people, and you just want people to leave you alone, stop asking you questions. So you get better at it, not because you got better at it, but just because you're sick of dealing with people. So you're like, all right, man, just do this. Leave me alone.
Just do this.
Well, it's a real science, man. What you do, physical therapy, it dates back thousands of years. The human body needs repair, and you guys are there to help us when we need when we need it most. So thank you for everything that you do for athletes around the world, man. That's amazing.
Of course, we love it. I mean, I tell people there's not really one set of person that I enjoy working with. I like working with young people, old people, athletes, not athletes, but what we do is so much fun because everyone moves so differently that everything is kind of it's a new puzzle with each time. So you got to watch them move. You got to understand their movement. You got to know what they want to do. And then you got to figure out kind of a path to success from there.
That's so interesting. And you, I have the R.I.S.E background behind me right now for the YouTubers. You can check out his logo. So kind of explain to all the listeners what R.I.S.E is. I see it's an acronym. It has the dots in between. So does it stand for something bigger?
It does, yeah. So when I started R.I.S.E, I wanted to, I wanted to figure out something that involved a process. I never really ever having something that has an end game, because I don't feel like you ever really have an end game. So
yeah.
I didn't want something that had a peak or a pinnacle or something. We wanted a process. So we came up with R.I.S.E, and R.I.S.E stands for Revolution in Self-Evolution. And, we took that internally as a motto to say, hey, every time we step in the clinic or we're doing stuff, we have to evolve internally, but we also took that for our patients, that we want them to constantly be evolving, and we wanted to be part of that revolution for their self-evolution.
Whoa, that's heavy duty, man. I love that. That's an awesome name.
Super
and
cool.
I just wanted something short that would fit on a t-shirt. So
yeah.
Well, you pulled it all off there with that one. That's a good one.
Indeed. It. Yeah. Hey, Navid, for the listeners, real quick, would you mind just kind of going through, your accolades, degrees, and just kind of, the qualifications that you have and the places that you've worked, up until this point?
Absolutely. So I started kind of my medical career at the University of Michigan. I was an athletic trainer, worked with a lot of sports there, but primarily with football. I traveled with the team and was heavily involved in that process.
At Michigan State, you said?
University of Michigan. Say it again. I'll smack you. Say it again. Say it again.
Before the show, Marcelo made sure to ask him if it was Michigan or Michigan State, and he said, "Do not stay Michigan State."
Yeah.
That's a heated topic there.
It's a sensitive.
Michigonians. Yeah.
Sensitive.
So
when
college,
I,
man.
Yeah, it was good. We had a good time. So when I left there, I did a little bit of consulting in kind of the sports, sports performance world. Realized that wasn't really where my passion lied either. So then I ended up going down to USC, Southern California, got my doctorate in physical therapy there. Came down to San Diego, ended up doing my residency there. Worked at a practice for a short period of time, about a year and a half, and then finally kind of got to the point where I decided I'd kind of break off and do my own thing. So in 2014, I started my first practice here in San Diego. And then ever since then, it's just kind of been a fun whirlwind of working across states, working across the country and doing some different work, whether it be with just straight owning and running practices or doing consulting work or some different medical boards that I sit on.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and now you have, what was it, like 8, 9 practices across the U.S., something like that?
So
right?
We just opened up 2 clinics in Virginia. I got 1 location in LA, 3 in Orange County, and then we just opened up our 11th location here in San Diego.
Dude, congratulations! Holy
thank you,
smokes.
Appreciate it.
And they're all R.I.S.E? Is there?
No, I've branded most of them as R.I.S.E. So R.I.S.E is kind of based out of Southern California, based in San Diego. Some of my other practices have different names, and a lot of it's just based off regionality. Like totally. In downtown LA, they don't care, our name and our reputation here in San Diego. So that's called something else. The ones in Virginia are called something. That was actually called Rise Up Physical Therapy, the one in Virginia. So they're all kind of a little bit of a spinoff. I have some other that are called different names. It's purposeful branding. Some of them there's value in having kind of one larger umbrella, and then for some of them there've just been opportunities that have come about that didn't really make sense to kind of slap our name on it. So we just kind of ran with a different brand or a different name. But they're all entities that I own and operate.
Yeah, and they all thrive, and you better believe it. I want to kind of talk to you about like that whole experience of going through school and really applying yourself in that way, because that is not easy to do. And it takes a lot of mental fortitude and determination and passion for your craft to do that kind of thing. And I think that there's a lot of value in that. So kind of walk me through what that journey was like and some of the hurdles that you had to face, going through school to get to where you are now.
Absolutely. I mean, I think anyone that gets into healthcare gets in to help people. And so when I got into healthcare, that was the primary goal. And I think if you put that first and foremost every single day, you can move forward and you can overcome any, educational obstacles or job obstacles or whatever that may be. Once I kind of felt comfortable in my skin as far as being a practitioner, I started to, take a step back and look at the landscape of medicine and figure out, what's missing, where are there holes, where do I feel like I can do something better than someone else, or what is a system in medicine that I feel like I can add value to? And in my profession, at least, I looked at the treatment model for physical therapy. So traditionally, physical therapy is you go into a clinic, you spend 10, 15 minutes with someone, they do some work on you, they write some exercises on the board, and then they kind of toss you a board and hand you down to an aide or an assistant and then take you through it. So I looked at that model and I said, well, I don't feel good as a practitioner about that model, but that's my profession. How can I go in there and how can I change that? So I looked at the model as a whole and I said, I want to try and flip that on its head and kind of be the reverse of what the traditional approach to therapy is. And how do I create a more unique one-on-one experience so that when you're in a clinic, you spend that entire time with that provider. So, understanding the mechanics of it, I had to take a step back and learn about insurances and all the legal components and everything. And then I was able to kind of sit back and say, okay, this is what I feel like is right to do medically. And this is what I feel like the ecosystem would allow. How do I merge those two together? And that's kind of where I created that first practice. And then from there, I started treating and I was in the clinic all the time, but I realized I could only go so far. I could treat 80 patients in a week and that was fantastic, but I couldn't go to 90. I couldn't go to 100 because I was limited by my own, capabilities as an individual. So then I took another step back and realized, okay, how do I create an environment for other people to do this? And how do I create an ecosystem that can grow and build? And so, Marcelo made the joke that, I actually don't really practice medicine anymore, to be quite honest with you. What I do is I create environments for other people to practice medicine, and I allow them to use their skills. Because at the end of the day, 100 people are going to be able to help way more people than I ever was. And so if I can be kind of the catalyst to help create those environments to allow those people with their individual skills to shine, then that's, then I've done my job in medicine and I've done my job in business.
Yeah. And in humanity, dude, like the human race needs you to stay, like there's a lot of people that absolutely need your help. And it's an amazing thing that you guys do. And I think that's just that is bigger than physical therapy, that there's something to be said about that in just general life too. We need more people that are leaders, and you've really taken that leadership role head on and done a fantastic job with it. So that's amazing.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Something that is a really important point to discuss, I think, is the common perception of what physical therapy even is. I know before I met you, Navid, which was over 10 years ago, my perception of physical therapy was a place for older people to go to, when they had these ailing injuries or nagging pains. It just didn't seem like it was something that I was ever going to need. Even if I did get injured, I was like, I just go to the gym or something. But I realized through, meeting you and all of the different type of physical therapy that I've had to go through, the importance of physical therapy for, longevity and mobility and really just a better quality of life. You can benefit from physical therapy even if you don't have any injuries. All of the stuff that we do, I still use to this day. All the stuff that I've learned from you, it's stuff that helps prevent injury and make me a better athlete. The types of workouts and mobility exercises, flexibility, which, obviously I wasn't that flexible when I first came in there, and now flexibility is something I pride myself on. And all of this stuff is so important for not just being an athlete, but being able to grow old and be healthy. The last thing we want as individuals is to grow old and not be mobile. Like that sounds terrible, and so this kind of stuff is so valuable for just the everyday person. But, I know so many people don't realize how much they could benefit from doing stuff that you would do in physical therapy, unless you have to, but you don't have to. You just should be doing this stuff all the time.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, it's just like every profession, every profession has its own stigmas that come with it. And for us, it's just like you said, it's only for old people, or it's only when you need it, or it's only after surgery. And so a lot of our job is education. But I think once people are able to kind of have an open mind and see the correlation between having one more degree of range of motion here, causing less stress on this over the course of X million amount of steps that you're going to take throughout the course of your life, causing less low back pain. And so as long as we're able to just continue educating people and say, they come in and they're like, well, my back doesn't hurt right now. Why would you spend time working on my ankle? And we can kind of show them mechanically that, hey, every time you take a step, this is what happens. Now imagine 1% extra being loaded on this area. Now imagine that multiplied by however many steps you take in a day throughout a lifetime. And think about that load going into your low back. And now instead of needing a spine surgery at 64, you need it at 37. So educating people on that is a lot of what we do. And then just kind of, taking each case as it is, whether it be, a surgical case, whether it be a traumatic injury, whether it be an overuse, or whether it be just someone who wants to have less risk of future injuries. And it doesn't matter if you're 2 months old or you're 200. I think that applies.
Yeah. And every individual is unique. Like you said, every single human being is so unique. And not only that, but every single one of those human beings also has a unique lifestyle to add on top of that. So you have to take all of those things into consideration and really get a full good look at it and make good judgments. And you're like a magician almost, you know what I mean?
No.
Dude,
yeah.
This guy is an absolute magician. I'm just telling you, there's so many different, aches and pains and things that I a couple years ago, perfect example. I had meniscus surgery done on my knee, and I actually didn't get to work with you that much, Navid, but I got to work with Alex, which was, is he the head of that Point Loma office?
Alex is the head of my company. He's the president of my company.
Gotcha.
He's somebody who I trust with my life.
You put me in good hands, but I had the surgery 3 weeks before World Cup, and sure enough, I was able to play at World Cup, and this was a surgery that I probably shouldn't have been playing so soon. And I'm not advocating returning from injury soon. I know a lot of people always reach out to me with knee stuff, and they ask, how long it's going to take to recover, this and that. And first and foremost, obviously, I don't have the expertise to know, but I usually recommend take the time. But you know me, I've always rushed it. But with that is putting in the work, though, right? Like we put in the work, and it makes a difference. It really does.
I think there's so many factors that go into healing. There's the psychosocial aspect of it. There's a history of it. There's the injury itself. There's the ability of a person to heal. There's, there are confounding variables. But then, as practitioners, the most important thing that we do is just watch and listen and learn. And, I think I owe a lot of my career to someone like Marcelo, who kind of came to me early. And I honestly, I knew what paintball was. I knew, of it, but I never really studied it. And so when I first met Marcelo, I remember one of the first things we did was I went to the tournament up in Huntington Beach with you. And I remember just sitting there in the stands and just watching movement and watching how joints bend and twist and turn and starting to think about those and then translating those into the clinic. I think if you, as a practitioner, but I think as anyone through life, I think if you're able to take a step back and recognize that you may not know what you don't know, but as long as you're willing to kind of really sit down and look at something with an open mind and learn about, the way that a knee moves. I remember, vividly when Ryan was in our office, Greenspan, one of the first times, he'd hurt his knee and I was looking at the way his foot was turning on the ground. I was like, that looks wrong. But then I talked to him about it and he's like, no, that's actually how we sit, or that's actually how we have to twist off. So I had to adjust my thinking and my perception of his rehab based off of the sport. And so, with anything we do, we have to watch and we have to learn. And I remember so many times sitting and watching Marcelo move or watching film to understand this is the way his body really needs to go. Now, how do I prepare it? And I think that you could take that with any sport and with any movement or anything in life.
Yeah. And that speaks volumes about you, man, taking that time to really dive in and really understand Marcelo and his journey and how you can attack that. And how about Huntington Beach, huh?
That was fun. that was actually a lot of fun. We had fun going up there.
Yeah, 100%. That was a good event, man. I missed those Huntington Beach tournaments, but that was a great one for you to go to right there on the beach. Yeah, you got the whole city right there showing out.
That was just a fun experience. I think, you always remember your first time in, if anybody's been to their first baseball game or ever been to their first football game, that was my first paintball experience. And I was like, wow, this is cool. I like this.
Yeah, love that. For sure.
It is, man. It's such a fun game. Like at the core of it, it's like we're big kids. We get to play adult laser tag, and run around. And the pain is a little bit more than laser tag, obviously, but I think that also is one of the things that kind of draws you in. You really have some skin in the game when you're playing paintball.
Dude, speaking of that, Navid, we should get you some of these guns. They're called gel blasters.
Yeah,
they're incredibly cool. They're really soft, really low impact. It's for kids, right? And it's like a biodegradable kind of little gelatin pellet that you shoot it, it explodes, and it doesn't leave anything. So it's not a mess. It's not like normal paintball, but it's to mimic paintball for youngsters or in like an office setting. I feel like your R.I.S.E crew would have a ton of fun with it.
Yeah,
I'm going to veto that, to be perfectly honest with you. And the only reason I'm going to do that is because
they're going to gang up on you.
My staff has treated, obviously Marcelo throughout a good amount of his injuries, Ryan through a good amount of his injuries, and then a couple of other people, your friend Scott, some of these other people that have come through. Yeah. And every single time I get bombarded with, hey, when are we going to go as a company and play paintball? When are we going? And I have to sit them down and remind them, like, do you guys not recognize how good these guys are? Like, do you think that you as a 23-year-old who, runs on the weekend wants to be in an obstacle course with this guy shooting, pellets at you consistently? Like you gotta recognize your limitations, and that's probably not where you want to go.
Smart man.
Dude, we're setting it up. We're gonna do a company
not doing
paintball
it.
outing.
Do you
You're on
have,
our
do you have
team.
any idea what my liability insurance would look like?
You're gonna be on my team, bro. It's
You're
the
on our
safest.
team. Yeah.
It's the safest thing you can do as a
Truly.
company outing. It truly is. This is something like we advocate business parks doing all the time because one, it's amazing team building. Truly is. You know, communication.
And you're on
teamwork,
our team,
trust.
brother. We're rolling with
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
What I'm also gonna do is I'm gonna have little flashcards of the
Yeah.
employees that aren't doing too well, and I'm just
Yes.
gonna hold it in front of you and be like, "This
Yeah.
guy,
This
get
guy.
him."
That's hilarious, man.
I can't believe you're scared to get shot with a paintball.
No, I'm
That's
not scared to
crazy.
get shot with a paintball. I just
I
don't
can't
want to
believe
be on a paintball court with you. That's
Yeah.
just
Always
understand.
scared, man. Always scared. You didn't want it in basketball. You never wanted it in basketball. I know you don't want it in golf. We talked about that before the show. You know, it's
you don't want it in napping. You know, we can each come to our strengths and our skill sets. Like it's fine.
shout out to the heavy nappers one time.
Yeah, man.
Hey, the genius
Blake
is sweet.
Yarber.
The
Blake
genius.
Yarber is. I'll tell you what, Blake Yarber. You're going to meet him. Obviously, we just spoke about that, but he will give you a run for your money, Navid, in the napping department. That man can fall asleep anywhere.
Oh, I'm not a good napper. I very much enjoy it. I
Yeah.
enjoy the process of failure of napping. It's probably like 5 days a week I try and take a nap, and probably 4.5 of them I fail. But I got to do it.
At least you get to close the eyes for a second. It's like a little bit of a meditation. You get to zen out for a minute. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And man, it's paintball is honestly safe. Like Marcelo was saying, it is they've done studies and it's even safer than bowling and all these things that you would think are really safe. And
it's not that I don't think it's safe. I just don't think it's wise for my staff to try and challenge Marcelo and Ryan and all these dudes that can
You're
do
not
it in their
wrong.
sleep. It's just, I mean, you got to know.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to take an insurance policy out on that alone. You're right.
We're going to come up with some waivers.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely have to sign some waivers.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
And I gotta say, man, your staff is amazing. Every single person that I've ever met that works for your company is just a direct representative of who you are. So you've done a really good job with that, man.
I appreciate it. I remember seeing other practices that I was involved in a long time ago, and I remember seeing just hire for the sake of hiring and firing for the sake of firing. And I remember early on, I had to come up with certain principles that I would never kind of go away from. And I think one of the principles that I came up with, and luckily I've able to, live through it, is I never would hire anyone that I wouldn't be comfortable with them treating my mom or my dad. And I'm lucky enough that my mom and dad live here in San Diego. And so pretty much all my staff has treated my mom or my dad. So it's something that I can say that, just because my name may be on the door, on the title, that person who's treating you is somebody who I'm comfortable enough treating my mom and my dad, who mean the more to me than anyone in the world. And it's a staple that we've always had in our company.
That's amazing. That's amazing, man. Yeah, you gotta. That's the pride of the company, right? That's you. You know what I mean? And you got to make sure that they're going to take care of everybody just like they would family members, especially in these types of settings. And this is our bodies, and you have to make sure that they're going to be in literally the best hands possible.
Yeah,
100%.
exactly.
Yeah.
So Navid, you've obviously seen paintball quite a bit. You know what we do. You understand what's required to compete at the highest levels in our sport. Paintball is often a sport that is overlooked as a sport, right? It's thought of more as a game or a hobby. And a lot of people outside of the sport don't understand how physically demanding it can be and how much of an athlete you actually do have to be to compete at the highest levels. Can you kind of elaborate maybe a little bit on from what the importance of athleticism and different movements, mobility, flexibility, stuff like that? And
I think there's, any activity requires a certain level of demand on the body, right? Some activities require higher level demand, some require less, but any activity requires some level of demand. I don't think, it's funny. We have a joke. It was something one of my mentors taught me a long time ago. It's, if Winnie the Pooh walked into your practice as a medical practitioner and they watched you work with someone, Winnie the Pooh is cute, right? Everybody loves Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh is probably not the smartest, bear in the world. But Winnie the Pooh should be able to watch you move and be able to tell you what you're training for or what you're rehabbing for. So Winnie the Pooh should be able to look at someone upright, moving, and going through a certain set of movements, like, oh, that's a runner. Or Winnie the Pooh should be able to look at that person and say, oh, that's a football player. And I think the best analogy I can translate to paintball is Winnie the Pooh could and would look at a paintball and look at the way they move and the way that body contorts and recognize that that is a sport based off of, dimensionality and movement and contortionism and athleticism. And Winnie the Pooh should be able to look at that and be able to say that that is a sport. There's a certain level of mobility, flexibility, strength when you break down all the aspects of biomechanics. If Winnie the Pooh could do it, then anyone can do it. And so looking at the way you guys move and looking the way that knees twist and ankles twist and athleticism and bursts and power and speed and agility and mobility, and you combine all those two together, you don't have to be, a lover of biomechanics like someone like I am. You could just be a lover of human movement. And when you see a human move that way, you recognize that takes a lot of skill, and there's a lot of athleticism that goes into that, but there's a lot of training and there's a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears. And that is a sport that is, meant to be recognized.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's what I think people don't realize is the movements you see the pros doing. They think that they've just been playing the game for so long that these movements come natural. A lot of it is from training in the gym. You look at some of the top pros, Alex Goldman, he's an absolute beast. He's incredibly fast and knows how. He's big. He's like 6 foot, he could get himself really small. Tyler, you're the same way. Tyler is 6'2", one of the most athletic dudes in the game, but he can get smaller than just about anyone, no matter how tall the opponent is. He can get almost smaller than them because of his flexibility and mobility. Chad George is a gymnast, essentially, like we have players that train outside of paintball in ways to be able to make these dynamic moves on the field that people in the paintball industry, they just don't realize the amount of work that it takes to be able to execute these dynamic plays, in events.
It's funny you said gymnast, because that's actually the best analogy that I think I personally have for paintball is that as an outsider to look at gymnastics and look at the forces that go through that person's body when they're doing a certain movement, whether it be, tumbling or, hurdle, bars or whatever, but looking at the forces that go through a certain body or a certain body point in gymnastics very much translate to the forces that you guys experience in your sport. Now, it may not be as shocking of a landing, but the contortion and the twist and the bend and the whatever may happen to the knee, ankle, hip, whatever, that those forces that happen in paintball are actually very similar to the forces that someone experiences in gymnastics. And that's why I think the parallel is so unique there.
Totally. Absolutely agree. And also kind of a martial arts aspect to it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And we actually had a UFC fighter on recently. Shout out to James Krause. And he was just breaking down all the similarities that go into that aspect of it as well. But gymnastics, martial arts, it's absolutely based on being flexible and being able to get into your spot. And then you have to gunfight out of your bunker in this weird contorted position, which it takes a lot of practice to really be efficient and really good at it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's fun, man. It's the best.
Absolutely. Navid, what kind of exercise do you think, that's the right way to put it, would be most beneficial for a paintball player? What type of training?
I think anything in what's classified as the HIIT training, the high intensity interval training, that typically translates best from an overall speed, power, performance standpoint. And then anything, just like you said, Tyler, in the martial arts, yoga-y kind of mindset from a mobility standpoint. I think those two worlds marry really well for somebody in paintball. I think something that's aimed at explosive power in short bursts over a short period of time, that's not extended, not long. You're not running 5 miles in a match, but you may run short little bursts that may equate to 5 miles at some point. So something high intensity, high power, high velocity, but then also marrying it with something that involves contorting your joints in all manner of movement that prepare you to be able to do so.
Yeah.
Contorting your joints, that sounds painful.
No, that's good. No,
but yeah,
Wait till next time your elbow hurts. We'll control each other.
Yeah. And he's not wrong. It really is.
No, yeah.
And that's why I think, honestly, we've talked about this before on the show. The best training you could possibly do for paintball is playing paintball, because there's really very few things. Like, you can go in the gym and try to do paintball moves and this and that and the other, or go to the park and try to do that. But the best training is being on that field with your paintball gun, snap shooting, and going through the movements.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a law in biomechanics that's based in physics. It's something called transference, and it basically the crux of it is, if you do something, you're going to get better at that thing. You may get better at other things, but you're going to get better at that thing. So the best analogy is there's different types of muscle movements, right? There's shortening movements, there's lengthening movements, and then there's isometric movements. And they've done millions of studies where they're like, listen, if we just train someone on a bunch of shortening movements and then we tested them later, the thing that they're going to get better at are shortening movements. That's the thing that they're going to improve at the most. But they're actually get a little bit better at lengthening movements and a little bit better at isometric movements. So there's some transference that happens with training. But the thing that you get better at is the thing that you do that looks most closely like the thing that you do. So to your point, Tyler, if you're going to get better at paintball, yeah, if you do some sit-ups, you'll probably get a little bit better at paintball. Yeah. But if you play some paintball, you probably get a whole lot better at paintball. It's it's as simple as that. There's an old Michael Jordan quote. Somebody used to ask Michael, like, how do I jump higher? He's like, just start jumping. Like, it's just like, they didn't have crazy techniques, in the 80s when he was playing. They're like, how do I jump higher? He's like, just freaking start jumping. It's not that hard.
Totally, that's funny. Man. That's something Tyler does a lot. In a lot of his training, it is all those kind of movements. He does very simple stuff. A lot of jumping. Jumping's a big one.
That's right. Yeah. Honestly, that I wanted to pick your brain on this. This is great that you're bringing this up, because for me as a paintball player, Marcelo, you're absolutely right. I do a ton of jumping exercises, a lot of plyometrics, and a lot of where I'm in a squat position, moving like I have a paintball gun in my hand, and I'm in my paintball stance, and then walking back and forth across the floor, and then doing quick intervals in those stances. But it's really crazy because paintball, like you said, you don't need to run 5 miles. You got to make sure you can make it through the cut. They're going to shoot a stream at you. You got to be fast through that cut so that stream doesn't hit you. So it's really that quick interval and a lot of hopping. And I like to jump over my bunkers and shoot people too. So I got to be able to do that as well.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's the thing is, it's not to say that you can't go in a gym and bench press and get stronger. That happens. We all want to, we're guys. We want to look a certain way, or we want to feel a certain way. You want to do a certain exercise. But when you really, truly break it down, if you're going to get better at something, the thing that you should do to train for that should look a whole lot like that thing. Winnie the Pooh should look at it and say, hey, that looks like that. Yeah. Tyler's jumping looks like the way he plays. Perfect.
Dude, I love that you brought Winnie the Pooh up. I just received a magazine from Europe today, and I was reading. I was 15-year-old Tyler in this magazine, and it asked me my favorite character in the whole world, and I said Eeyore. Eeyore. And then they said, why? I said, because he's always sad. It was hilarious.
That's heavy, dude.
15-year-old Tyler needed a hug.
I was emo.
This Tyler might need a hug too. I don't know. Yeah.
Give me a hug, brother. Come on in. Yeah. It's just hilarious that you brought up Winnie the Pooh, and I was just reading that magazine today. It's funny.
That's funny. Yeah.
So what is the hardest aspect of the body to heal? Like, what takes the longest to heal? Is it knees or elbows? What typically is like the hardest one?
Back?
I gotta say, yes. The most finicky joint in a body is an elbow. It's got such a weird capsule. Like, you would look at it and just be like, all right, well, the knee looks way cooler, or the hip looks way cooler. But there's something about the fibers that go about it in an elbow in terms of rehab that, like, knees have very estimated prognosis. So when you could bend it a little bit more today, you can bend it a little bit more tomorrow, and a little bit more the next day. And you may have a little bit of a setback, but then you can continually bend it. With an elbow, one day you can go all the way. One day it's 25%. One day it's 75%. One day it's 60. One day it's 30. It's such a finicky joint. It's got this weird capsule that goes around it that it's my least favorite joint to rehab just because it's so freaking weird in the terms in the way that it responds. It's a
And by
cool
capsule,
joint.
what do you mean by capsule? And is it like on the inside or the outside of the elbow?
It's actually both. So every almost all of your joints have what's called a synovial capsule. And
Whoa.
what it is it's basically like this covering of tissue that's got some liquid inside of it. And all that does is that keeps it lubricated. It keeps it from moving. Now, what happens with an injury is things swell up, right? You've seen how with every injury things swell up. So imagine that covering being saran wrap. And imagine saran wrap wrapped around a ball or something like that, and then that ball expanding to twice its size.
Whoa.
Now, when the swelling goes away, that saran wrap doesn't shrink all the time. So now you have this loose, kind of saggy saran wrap. And then the saran wrap decides to react to what's happening, and then it shrivels. And now it's way tighter on the joint than it needs to be. So that's when that capsule is tighter. So that saran wrap is kind of what messes with you because it expands and it's too loose, or it's shriveled up and it's too tight. And just getting the mechanics of that, and that's for most joints, it's just getting the understanding of how do I get that saran wrap to the right tension and the right area and the right lubrication that it needs to hold within to be able to do what it needs to do.
And how exactly do you go about navigating that and getting that to the proper, tightness, I guess, right?
I think a lot of it is just, based off of the great thing that we have in the body is that we have a perfect comparison on the other side. We're bilateral humans. So one of the greatest things that we have as practitioners is we have a,
example.
We have an example of normal. Now, normal is different for each person, right? And right to left sometimes is funky, but at least I have a baseline of what kind of normal looks like. So I got your other side to look at. And then the other thing is just kind of understanding what does it need to do, right? A gymnast's elbow probably needs to hyperextend versus someone else's elbow probably doesn't need to hyperextend. So you take an offensive lineman in football, if we were to crank that joint to the point where it hyperextended, that guy's going to get hurt. But a gymnast's elbow is built to hyperextend. So understanding what the demands of that joint are is kind of the next step. First step is, you have the comparison on the other side. And then the other step is understanding, okay, Tyler, what does that elbow need to do for you in your life and in your movement? And how do I get it to that point? And then once you get it there, you got to keep it there, whether it be with strength or stability or, some more flexibility, range of motion if it needs it. But a lot of times it's get it to that point and then stabilize it there.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, man. And that's actually a kind of a good segue into what some of the most common injuries in paintball are, which are typically shoulders and then knees, occasionally like a rolled ankle, but shoulders are they're the main one. Right? People dive, the barrel sticks into the ground and you kind of dislocate a shoulder. That happens quite a bit. What can players do to prevent that kind of stuff, to strengthen that area and,
keep your barrel tip up in the air when you slide so that you don't hit the ground.
That's funny because I remember like my second year of medical school when we were learning about shoulders, they said, keep your tip up. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. I mean,
yeah, it does.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, when you dive, keep the barrel up.
Yeah.
I'm writing it down furiously. I don't know what that means. I'm going to look it up later.
Because people in paintball all day, when they go to dive into their bunker, their barrel goes straight in the ground and then the tank just wrecks their shoulder and then it pops it out.
It also happens though, even if the barrel tip is up, the other arm, the landing arm or like the pivot arm, the plant arm, kind of gets stuck and pulls back and that
so
happens.
So going back to what we talked about earlier is if you want to get better at something, the thing that you should do should look a whole lot like that. So traditionally, the way you see people train shoulders are things like bench press or pull up or push ups and things like that. Those are all things where the arm is moving on the body. But Marcelo just defined it perfectly where the hand is planted and the body is moving on the arm. So the way I would advise someone to rehab or train or, bulletproof their shoulders is do things where your arm is fixated on something and you're driving your body through different movements. You're going forward and back and side to side and you're rotating because now you're training that shoulder to say, hey, next time you're on the ground and my body is flying forward, you have the strength to control that. Versus you only know how to control a weight away from you where your body is fixed and your arm is moving. So
Yeah.
it's those simple things of, hey, find the thing that causes the injury. And in this case, it's a body moving on the arm, and then train your body the way that happens. And that's different positioning of your arm and your body moving in different ways on top of it. The nice thing we have in movement, and I think the thing that people forget, is we live in a 3-dimensional world, right? We live in a 360-degree 3-dimensional world. I think people are scared to train 3-dimensionally, but they forget that in real life, you move 3-dimensionally, and that's usually where you end up getting hurt. So put your hand on the ground and move your whole body in all kinds of weird ways on top of it 3-dimensionally. That looks a whole lot more like the way most shoulder injuries happen when the hand's on the ground, and your body's going to get better at that, and it's going to be prepared for it.
Yeah. Dude, I want to touch on that because that is, you've always done a really good job of breaking down and explaining things kind of in layman's terms to me, to, you know, anybody that I've ever sent to you. If you were to speak in, you know, your doctoral language, a lot of us aren't going to understand it, but you do a really good job of making things make sense. I remember my first knee surgery. You know, I had a total ACL reconstructive surgery, meniscus repair, the whole deal. And
an extra wire that was hanging out in there.
And an extra wire. Yeah. Goodness, dude.
Dude, Marcelo, you have been that your knees, man, have been through it. And you just won World Cup, dude. Let's go.
They honestly feel good most of the time. They kind of crackle and pop. My whole body cracks and pops. We got to talk about that. I don't know what's going on, but
that's called aging.
Yeah. In any case, I want to talk about this because the first recovery, I played the first tournament. My first tournament was like 5.5 months after the surgery. So it was an early return. And I remember throughout the whole process, I let you know that I was pretty aggressive about wanting to get back as quick as possible, get back to, you know, I wanted to be available for the season opener. And the first time that I went out and played, this is a big part of injuries. And we always talked about this, it's the psychological part. I had all of the confidence in all of the movements on the field because we had mimicked everything in therapy. Yeah. So there was nothing that I was going to go out and do on the field that I hadn't already done. And that's, you know, often, again, a lot of people reach out for advice on dealing with some sort of injuries, minor, major, whatever it might be. And that's always a big one that has always stuck with me, is that first and foremost, you need to have the confidence in those movements, because any hesitation in those movements, especially on the paintball field, is how you injure yourself. That's how you re-injure yourself, you know? So you need to do stuff in training. You know, often people, they'll have a knee injury and they don't do much therapy, if any at all. And they come back and they're trying to return to the game because they just miss playing so much. But you can't control all the variables in a paintball game. You know, you have people shooting at you. So as you're running around, if you're forced to, you know, slide to the left or slide to the right to get out of the way of some paint, or dive under a lane, whatever it might be, that's when you're going to re-injure yourself if you haven't done all those movements over and over and you know that you're okay doing it again. Does that make sense? You know, like
absolutely. And it actually kind of goes into what Tyler mentioned earlier of how he trains, and, you know, he's squatting down and moving around and things like that. Not only does your preparation, whether it be from a training or a rehab standpoint, not only does your preparation have to make you feel so confident in the movement that's going to happen when you step, you know, onto a paintball field, but you have to have done it so much that fatigue's not going to play a factor, because you have to have done it so well and so many times that when you get tired or when you get sloppy, you're not going to lose that form, because when you lose that form, that's when you get injured. And if you haven't done it, or if you haven't done it in that speed, or if you haven't done it in that range, or you haven't done it even faster than the range that you're even potentially going to experience on a field, because field has an entire reactive component to it. You know, psychosocially, if you've done all things that you've pre-programmed, like, hey man, I can squat 600 pounds because I got racks on and I know I'm going to go down and I'm going to go up. That's great. But if somebody's shooting at you and all of a sudden you have to move a millimeter to the left, have you prepared your knee to react to you moving a millimeter to the left? And if not, your knee is at risk for injury. And I think that's just like you said, Marcelo, is your practice always has to be harder than the game, because if it's not, don't go to the game. If you can't practice, and you can't practice faster, harder, bigger, stronger, longer than the game, then you're not prepared to return to the game. If you've done that, then you have the confidence to do so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know, when we're getting ready for tournaments, the tournament is the easy part. It's the practice that is rigorous. Like, we are just running ourselves. I know, a lot of us are working out like maniacs and really doing everything we can to, like you said, go above and beyond and train bigger and harder and stronger than what it's actually going to be, so that when you show up, you're not getting fatigued and getting injured. You're not behind the cue ball when it comes time to punch in the clock card and go get it done. You're primed and ready to go. And that's the part that I think a lot of players might be missing who are listening out there is, it looks easy, but there's a lot that you don't see. It's like an iceberg. You see just the tip of it, and you're like, whoa, look at that. That's pretty cool. They're making these types of things, but you don't see the 90% of things that went on to even make that possible. So you really got to be working your butt off out there.
Yeah. And I mean, and if you hadn't have done that 90%, the iceberg would have sunk.
Totally.
You may just see that tip, and it may be really cool to see that tip or see that performance. But if that 90% wasn't there, the iceberg wouldn't be there.
That's it. Yep. Keep the iceberg floating, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, I can't stress the importance enough of plyometric type movements and that type of exercise to train for paintball. It truly is probably for any sport, actually, not just paintball, but it just helps with being explosive. And the game of paintball is really physically demanding, but in ways that you're never going to be able to recreate in a gym with your traditional exercises. And so that's something we're always advocating is you got to try, just what you're saying, Navid, is you got to try to recreate these things. One of my favorite exercises to do is just the weighted step ups. It's so simple, but it incorporates a little bit of balance. It's extremely exhausting. Remember, I used to sweat all over your place, dude. I do 2 sets.
I'm still disinfecting.
Bring out the mop. But it's such a different type of training than most people are doing. Whether a lot of people do, they want to go to the gym and boost their ego and put a bunch of weight on the squat rack, and then go over to the bench and put up multiple plates. And that is cool. That's great. And again, you're right. As men, we want to have a certain aesthetic. We want to have the muscle to show, but at the end of the day, that's not what's going to make you compete at the highest level in the game of paintball. And that's not what's going to, prevent you from injury. That's not what's going to allow you to have a career based around longevity. You got to give it to Ryan Greenspan. And, Navid, you obviously know Ryan. He was just the MVP at World Cup. I'm not sure if you know that. He played out of his mind, but at 46 years old or whatever he is, he's still just absolutely crushing it. I just kidding for the listeners. Ryan is 38. But
I believed it.
You
believed
it.
All right, cool. I'm texting happy birthday. So.
Yeah, exactly. But he's in better shape than 95% of the pro division. That's no joke, And
our team, he's one of the most in shape dudes on our team. And
absolutely.
He's killing it.
And again, I've had the privilege to work with Ryan. I think Ryan was probably the second person I worked with after Marcelo. And, I think Marcelo went back to his friend and said, hey, I trust this guy, give him a shot. And, Ryan gave me a shot. And to Ryan's credit, Ryan is freakishly athletic. He's got an enormous amount of strength, power, explosiveness, but he has certain movements and certain joints of his that he's developed over time that have allowed him to play for so long. And it's a silly thing that from an outsider may not make a lot of sense, but the way Ryan's ankles move are so critical to the way that his knees have been able to perform in paintball. And I remember vividly the injury that we were working with were his knees, but recognizing that his ankle is the one that's limiting his ability to basically plant his foot 90 degrees faced one way and sit on that back knee and be able to do what it needs to do. So to Ryan's credit, he's put in a ton of work on his flexibility and mobility. So I think people may look at Ryan and say, oh, he's fast or he's this and that. I look at Ryan, I'm like, man, I'm very proud of the mobility work that he's done on his body.
And he always tries to downplay it too. If you ask him, he's like, workout, I don't do a thing. I just sit on my couch all day and, have a glass of water and I'm just fine.
Yeah, right. But then I remember when I first met Ryan, I was like, oh man, let's see what this guy's about. Now I'm looking on his Instagram. He's underwater holding rocks, doing his little approach. I'm like, man, come on.
Exactly. He's always out there being active. He just likes to be the cool guy, you know. You know how
Yeah,
it goes.
And Marsh, I love what you said because you're right, dude. Like, don't get me wrong. I'll be in the gym lifting weights for the chest and like doing the arms or whatever. But while I'm doing it, I'm like, why am I doing this?
Ain't helping me.
Yeah, this isn't really what I need to be doing for paintball. I should be in that empty room, like the aerobics room, doing plyometrics and jumping on things and like doing those squat position movements, quick burst intervals to the right, quick burst to the left, things like that, because that's where paintball's played at.
Yeah, but again,
Yeah.
there's not only is there an emotional component to throwing around weight or doing some of the
Yeah.
traditional stuff, but it's fun to mix things up. I mean, you would go crazy if your life was paintball and all of your training was paintball, so like yeah, it's fine to I do it like this is my profession, this is my life. I still go to the gym and I look at a bench and I'm like, I'm gonna throw some weight around today.
Heck
Like,
yeah.
is it gonna benefit me in my life whatsoever? No, but it's still fun to do so. So
It is.
you still have to have that emotional or that mental break of and there's like I said, there's still some carryover. Is it 100%? No, even if it's 2%, but it's still do it.
Yeah. And you're right. It is fun, man. Just being in there, throwing weight around, that is a good time.
Yeah, I'm just so much more concerned, especially as I get older, right, of the impact that kind of stuff has on your joints, and like the long term, which I think is a real thing. I mean, you're the man to ask, Navid, but that kind of stuff, that heavy lifting, I just doesn't seem like it's going to be great for your joints long term.
No, I think what you see is I think almost everybody evolves in their training, whether or not they're playing a sport or whether or not they're competing in something. So like, I think the best analogy is you see football players when they're done playing football, some of them get really fat and some
Yeah.
of them get really skinny. And it's just the evolution of the change in their lifting style. Like you see O linemen who are naturally really, really large guys in football. Almost always when you see them done with football, they always get really skinny because they recognize the toll that the lifting that they had to do to be an O lineman has on their body. So you evolve and you change. And I think everyone, as you get older, kind of shies away from the, slanging and banging weight at the gym and more so just the, hey, what do I need to do the things that I enjoy? And, what's going to help me?
Yeah.
I feel like that's not as much of the sentiment as it should be. And I could be wrong. This is your profession. I'm sure you see it all the time, but I feel like people don't realize. And again, that's why I was so excited to have you on because you taught me that. You really did. I always wanted to go to the gym, put up the most weight, and go to the beach and look great. That was the motto. And when I realized the importance of functionality over all of that stuff, it just changed my whole paradigm in how I train and how I prepare and thinking long term, like how is this affecting my body 10, 15 years from now?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate because it's one of those like I wish it didn't have to be this way, but it takes someone getting hurt to recognize that. Just even though it's not the general mindset, when someone throws out their back, yeah, most people are at some point going to rehab and go back to the gym and still do dumb stuff, but some people look at that and say, okay, I probably don't need to be trying to deadlift 400 pounds anymore. Like I can deadlift 250 and be just fine and also incorporate 3 new exercises. And so I think it takes a level of introspection. And I think that only sometimes comes with injury. It's unfortunate, but I think that's also why when you get injured, not just trying to work through it and go back to doing the same things that you used to do and going and gaining some education on, hey, you can still look good by switching up these 3 movements or these 3 exercises and gaining that knowledge and that education. That's where I think people evolve in their, in their own training journeys or in their own fitness journeys.
Yeah. It's so easy to get injured at the gym too. I'm sure you've got to see that.
I do it. You feel like I always joke like you would think I know what I'm doing, right? Like you would think that like I should be, man, everything hurts. Like every part of my body, I'm like, yes, true. But I'm educated enough in my profession to know that if that hurts, I can do this, and I can still do it. A lot of people aren't that lucky. And so, just being able to educate them to be able to say, hey, okay, you may want to look this way or do this or do that. Just do this instead of that. And it's going to be a lot safer and it's going to be a lot better for your overall, career or your life or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Interesting.
I want to touch base real quick on the shoulder thing. You offered really valuable insight to that, where doing some sort of exercise where your arm is planted in that position, and you're doing different movements to mimic that. How do you feel about just like the traditional strengthening of the shoulder? People use the cables, and for all the listeners on the YouTube, I'm kind of showing the exercise. I don't know the name of any of these things. Where they have the cable and they pull out to the side, and your strength, because that's typically the common exercise to do to prevent shoulder injuries.
Exactly.
That kind of stuff, you think it's pretty important?
Again, it goes back to the law of transference. Will that stuff carry over and cause some benefit in function?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But will that carry over be a 1-to-1? No, it's like a 1-to-100. Will the thing that looks more like that carry over? Yeah, that's more of a 1-to-1. So a good way to describe it is, the traditional shoulder exercises that you talked about. I was always taught, and I always look at those as making guacamole. So a mortar and a pestle is your shoulder is like a mortar and a pestle. You got a cup, and you got avocados in there, and it's just jamming and going. So by bending and twisting and going, you're gonna make some avocado. It's gonna bend and go, but you're gonna beat that avocado to death, and it's gonna be, by the time you get the benefit in the real life function that you need, that avocado is gonna be guacamole. It's gonna be so mushy because you've had to do so much. You had to do 100 reps to get 1% of benefit. Mm-hmm. I would prefer to do 10 reps of something that looks a whole lot like something that I would need to do and get 10 reps of benefit. So it's not that you're doing anything wrong. And I think that's where a lot of people in medicine and fitness, they let their ego get in the way. You're not doing what I told you to do. I'm the smartest person in the room. That's not right. This is right. Nothing is right and nothing is wrong. There's just things that are closer to what you could be doing, to the function that you want, and there's things that are further away. But even the things that are
certainly something has to be wrong. There has to be.
If you're upside down at the gym doing whatever, it may not be. But even that, I guarantee you, has some level of transference. So as long as you can do that, it's the simplest principle, because you don't have to go to the smartest trainer in the world with the craziest equipment and, all of that stuff. Even the stuff that person is doing is making you a better paintball player or a better golfer or a better human. But why not just do the thing that looks a whole lot more like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
100% makes sense.
Interesting. And I wanted to kind of pick your brain on, I've been reading books about breathing and obviously how important that is to the physical process of not only healing, but exercise and strength training and all of that kind of stuff. So I was just wondering if you had any insights on breathing or breathing practices that you would recommend, for making sure that your blood is oxygenated properly and getting all the nutrients in there.
Absolutely. I mean, the joke is that, blood is, oxygen is the life force of the world, and it's the life force of our body. So when it's lacking oxygen in medicine, the parts of the body that we see not recovering quite as well are actually the parts that don't get as good of oxygenation, whether it be through the blood or through other means. So by recognizing that oxygen means healing, and oxygen means growth, and oxygen means proliferation, meaning cells, becoming better cells. By adopting practices that are aimed at oxygenation, you're impacting everything across the board. So, the short answer is there's no right way to breathe. Right. We've all been doing it since we were born. You can either breathe a lot, or you can breathe a little, or you can breathe deep, or you can breathe shallow. There's no real right way to breathe. But if you consciously take time to emphasize that, whether it be with guided meditation or diaphragmatic breathing or other, Wim Hof methods or other breathing techniques that there are out there, then what you're doing is you're now reoxygenating yourself to an extreme and allowing your tissues to have the tools to be able to do what they need to do. So, the short answer to your question, Tyler, is there's no real, there's no secret to it. Just freaking breathe. Set aside time and breathe. And you could do a million self studies, measure how well you exercise on Monday, and then on Tuesday, spend 2 minutes breathing before you exercise and watch that output. And that's all the data you'll need to see how important breathing is to it. And then do another study the next week. On Monday, don't breathe. And then on Tuesday, spend 30 seconds breathing in between sets of something and watch your performance on there and see how your body reacts best. Everyone's going to have an optimal way to do so, and just build off of that. Create your own program.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And just like you said, I can feel the difference when, I do my conscious breathing as opposed to maybe choosing not to breathe in the way that I know is going to get the most oxygen into my blood. You can absolutely feel the difference.
Absolutely. And it's funny because, 3 to 5 years ago, Marcel, like I remember, this, the oxygen masks, right?
Yeah.
The oxygenated altitude mask. That's how we trained, right? That's what all the cool people did. They had those masks on and they exercised, and and then so that when you took them off, you had oxygen bursting through your seams and you had all the energy in the world to do so. Well, guess what? We're kind of in that world right now with masks that we're doing to protect the world. We're restricting oxygen, and then all of a sudden, when we take that off, oh my God, I can run a little more, or I can do a little more exercise. So it's been done so many different ways throughout so many different generations, but just breathing and giving your body the tools to be able to do what it needs to do by breathing, whether it's conscious, unconscious, forced, unforced, whatever method, has so many incredible benefits that's actually probably more important than twisting a certain way or moving a certain way.
Mm-hmm. I love that, dude. How do you feel about those oxygen masks? I know, a lot of it's a topic of debate amongst people, because it's supposed to mimic higher altitudes. I've always thought that I got great benefits from them. I don't know if it's placebo or what, but I've always approved. And, the argument is that all it does is limit the amount of oxygen you breathe in. And I've always countered with, yeah, but that's doing something. It's allowing my body to adapt to performing on less oxygen. But I don't know. You're shaking your head, so I'm wrong.
What it's doing, and I had one. I loved it. I liked it. Yeah. It doesn't do what people think it does. Right. If you limit oxygen, the theory is that you limit oxygen and then you utilize it better and you don't need as much oxygen, whatever. No, because that only happens to the extremes when you're in pure altitude or you're at pure fatigue, you're at pure aerobic or anaerobic fatigue. That's not really like, I love you, Marcelo, but you were never getting to failure of aerobic capacity with that. What it was doing was it was training your mind to more effectively utilize oxygen when it wasn't there, because it made you less reliant on it when it was on. So the benefit of those isn't when it's on and what you're doing and how you're doing it. The benefit is when it actually comes off. And now when it comes off, now you're better able to intake, you're better able to diaphragmatically breathe or however. So I think the misperception with those is that the benefit is when it's on and then it looks cool. That's actually not. The benefit is actually when it comes off.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I meant. That's what I was. I was more saying that that's the argument amongst the general public. But for me, I had always felt like when I would use those and when I took them off, that I could do so much more, that it really did have a positive impact. And people would always say, well, that mask isn't actually doing anything. And my argument is, I think it is. I really do. I think it is.
Yeah. I think another, a case study is myself. I had asthma growing up, a real bad asthma. It's not that I can't walk, not that I can't move. I just have asthma. It is what it is. But when I would train with those masks, it would make it so that when I worked out without the mask, my body didn't freak out. My body didn't think that, oh no, I'm not going to get oxygen anymore, because I'm better at utilizing the oxygen that came. So I'm training my brain to more effectively utilize what's going to come in a real world environment by, just like we said, make your training harder than the game, make your practice harder than the game. So make your mask work harder so that when you actually go and you're playing paintball and you don't have something restricting your oxygen to an extent, that you're better utilizing that and you can be more effective using it and be more productive.
Interesting.
Yeah, indeed. That makes sense.
All
It
right,
really
so
does.
I want to pick your brain on this. A lot of paintball players get groin injuries because you're stationary, you're in your bunker, and then all of a sudden someone makes a move or something happens on the other side of the field that you have to counteract very effectively and quickly, and you have to do a lateral push to the side and you pull a groin muscle or something like that. So obviously they should be doing more of those exercises, prior to the tournament so that they're more acclimated to that. But what are some things that they could do to kind of heal that or mitigate it, if they're at a tournament and they need to, keep playing?
Yeah, I think this is something that Marcelo and I talk about a lot, or early in his rehab. The warm up is probably the most important part of paintball,
Yeah.
in my opinion, because in your warm up you need to replicate the movements that your body is going to experience in a match. So the first thing I would do is I would watch someone warm up, and I guarantee you that in their warm up there were very few times where their groin lengthened, or that they went through lateral movements, whether it be slow or quickly. So that would be the first thing I would do is I would say, hey, if you're about to go perform this movement, you're behooved to prep
Yeah.
yourself to do that. So, the first and foremost is in the warm up, do things that lengthen that groin, whether quickly or over length of time or both. And then from a training standpoint, it's the same thing. Do things like lateral lunges, lateral movements. Do some for distance and some for speed, and then do some for both. And by doing that, you've covered all of your bases. You've done the times where you got to move farther than you have the range or the flexibility to do so. You've done the times where you have to move faster than you have, the capability or the safety to do so. And then there's times where you have to do both. And so training things like lateral lunges, lateral steps, lateral slides, carioca, big things that are big, large, lateral type of movements, just make those as part of a very, very focused part of your training versus, squat, deadlift, leg extension, and calves. And I've done my leg day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, it's happened. I've pulled my groin so many times that that's one thing I focus on when I go to the gym. You'll see me, like most of the time you see the girls in the groin machine using it, like tightening it. I'm like, oh, I'm getting in there because it happens so much in paintball. And then I'll also do a lot of, like you said, the lateral lunges to get the groin going. But it's absolutely imperative in this sport with the types of lateral movements we have to make to make sure that that's dialed in.
Yeah, absolutely. And just another small hint that anyone who's listening can kind of take this. There's two types of lateral movements. There's one lateral movement. So if you're stepping to the right, for example, right, there's one lateral movement where your left leg stays stationary and then your right leg goes out. And then there's another type of lateral movement where you let your left leg pivot, or you let your left leg swing, or you let your left leg come with you. And both of those movements happen in paintball. So you have to prepare yourself for both of those. Don't just do things where, okay, I'm doing lateral stuff and my foot's pivoted on the ground and it's never going anywhere. Well, what about the time where you have to take a lateral step and then another one?
Yeah.
That left foot doesn't get dragged behind. It's got to come with you. So
That's
train it for both.
Yeah, we're moving and shaking out there for sure.
Yeah, anytime I've been injured on the field, it's not from controlled movements that I, am confident in and moves that I know I can make. It's when the variables change really fast and I'm forced to do something that I wasn't planning on. That's when it comes in. And so that's why that like extra flexibility and mobility in different joints to relieve pressure has become so crucial for me.
Absolutely. I mean, and there's a perfect example. So Russell Wilson, a lot of people watch football, kind of recognize Russell Wilson, famous football player for the Seahawks. And so a couple years ago, he sprained his MCL, meaning on the inside of his knee, he stretched a ligament that was in there. Well, his training involved his femur rotating quickly and his femur rotating so far that when the injury actually happened on the field and it happened so quickly or it happened so far, his femur had the training to do so. And that took him from a grade 1 injury that could have been a grade 3 tear. So those seem like little small things, right? Like, oh, I don't need to worry about bending, but biomechanically, if we were to take a cadaver of his MCL and put it in a lab and move his femur to where it used to be able to move versus move the femur to where he trained it to move or to how quickly he trained it to move. That's what saved his MCL from tearing and just becoming a grade 1 strain. And that happens all day, every second, every millisecond with sports, especially something like paintball. Training your body to move that quickly or that far or that quickly and that far, and whether you pre-program it or it's not pre-programmed and it's reactive, those are the things that save you from the injuries, the bad injuries at least.
Yeah.
That's huge. How about, so as far as healing, we're talking about oxygen and breathing, which is incredibly important. How important do you think nutrition is to an individual's ability to heal?
It's imperative. I mean, it's unfortunate because I think the worst thing that we all have working for us in nutrition is the fact that we were young once, right? And that we were all, when we were young, we got a fast food and we do this and we do that, and we still show up and play, and we were freaks of nature and all of that. But then when you get older and you're like, for some reason, I can't move quite that fast when I have 14 Taco Bell burritos, And I think nutrition is synonymous with oxygen. I think that's the best analogy that we can make. And if you put the right things in your body and it has the right, microcellular tools to heal, just like if you put the right amount of oxygen in the body and it has the microcellular tools to heal, then you're going to heal faster or recover faster or train faster or perform better. So it's not just about, pure caloric intake or what it does to your body for the way that you look. It has so many implications in terms of performance and healing that it's such an important factor. But again, nutrition is another one of those similar to oxygen. Like, there's no right way to breathe, just like there's no perfect way to eat. Everyone's got their stance. Everyone's got their philosophy. What's good, what's bad. Keto is good now. Keto used to be bad. Paleo is good now. Paleo used to be bad. Mediterranean diet, Atkins. Just do the right thing for your body, and you'll learn that over time through trial and error. And people can give you tips and people can give you advice on it, but everyone has a unique style of nutrition that will help them optimize their performance or their recovery.
And what a miracle the human body is. I mean, if you just look at it with how you're talking about the cells and how they're pretty much in charge of what's going on in this whole experience and how they're reacting with what we're feeding it as well, right? And I mean, if you break it down, we're water people, essentially. Everything is run off of water. So from a scientific standpoint, if you look at like the pH scale, if you're a water being, you probably want to have a lot of water, obviously, and also nutritionally base things on that scale as well. If you're eating too much acid, it's probably not going to be good for your cells. So maybe, if you're having a ton of meat, which can be very acidic, that might be damaging the cells that could be leading to a catalyst of things. So I think that that whole aspect of it kind of comes into play as well there.
Yeah, I mean, somebody taught me a long time ago that people in medicine, and I can speak for my profession. People in medicine aren't healers. They're not, they're not messiahs. We're environmentalists.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is it's our duty to create an environment to allow the body to heal itself. Like, I've never healed anyone a day in its life. I didn't touch Marcelo's knee and all of a sudden, hallelujah, like he was able to play paintball. My job was to create the environment for Marcelo's knee to heal itself.
Yeah.
Or my job was to create the environment for Tyler's shoulders to have the strength and stability to be able to protect itself. And so many factors go into that, just like you said, oxygenation, nutrition, and things like that. But when we look at nutrition, you're just in charge of creating the environment that's going to allow your body to have the path of least resistance. So when you put things in your body that cause acidity or inflammation or allergic reactions or adverse reactions, then you're creating a harder path to where you want to get to. Whereas if you put things in your body nutritionally that allow for a more successful, smoother path, that environment is going to be more successful. So you're your own environmentalist in terms.
That's so awesome. I love the way you put that. That's amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. I do too. Like I said, you have a good way of explaining things.
Yeah.
You have a great,
I
Spectacular.
say that as like I can't even grow a plant or something. Like, come around my house, we got some shrubs over there that are dead. Like,
I think isn't that, dude, that's kind of how it goes with like, I feel like all people who have plants, I have plants too, and I'm like, man, half of them I got it, and the other half I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing over here.
I can't do it. I don't know why. I don't know what it is.
plants. You got to go with succulents. They're really low
There you
maintenance.
go.
Hey, I'm a big fan of the plastic ones.
Yeah.
Look a whole lot like
Marcelo, what was the plant that Sahar found like a bush and she made you?
Yeah, it's a succulent. They're snake plants.
Yeah,
I have
those are
right
great.
here. Yeah, I have this massive one right here. It's gorgeous, and I have another one over by my TV area and one in my bedroom.
Snake
Go ahead.
plants also, they oxygenate, I think, right? They help to purify the air as well.
I don't know.
I think so.
I'm
Pretty
not.
sure.
I'm not. I think all plants do, right? So
That's right, but snake plants,
except for the plastic ones. They
yeah,
don't do
yeah.
except for the plastic, which I have a plastic one right here as well. You know, it was funny. This was my dad's actually, and a few months before he passed, he had asked me if I could go and get some fake plant decorations for him, and so I went to Home Goods and I'm shopping around. I see this one, I'm like, oh, this one's really cool. Got it for him, and he didn't stay with us too much longer after that, but I kept it, and I was like, I love this plant. It's the best fake plant that I've ever seen in my life.
You gotta keep that plant. It's
100%. I know.
Love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and your dad was a good man. He's always with us, dude. Always.
He was awesome, man.
Yeah, Navid has spent quite a bit of time with my pops as well. When my dad was going through all sorts of different.
Speaking of nutrition, every time you will go around Marcelo's dad, that man is feeding you. He's making sure you eat. Like he took good care of you. He never let anyone go hungry. Like that. That's a wholesome good man.
That's the Italian, the bloodline right there, baby. Yeah.
It wasn't always nutritious, but you were eating for sure.
Oh, it was nutritious.
We talked about an environment. We didn't say what kind of environment, but
100%.
He was making sure.
That's a great quality that I have definitely taken from him and will carry forever. I love having people over just to cook for them, just to feed their bellies, and food makes people happy, it just does, and there's nothing better than getting a group of your friends together and enjoying a nice meal with each other. That's like one of the greatest things to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. And Ryan, speaking of that, Ryan's out here like 2 doors down, hasn't called me for dinner. Better call me, boy.
Oh, he is still in Arizona, huh? That's right. Yeah, Navid. Dude, I want to talk to you about this, Navid. This is really badass. Because obviously you've been so heavily involved with sports. I don't want to overstep in saying this, but I like to brag about you because it's really cool. But you worked somewhat close to Kobe, worked with one of his trainers up in LA. I'll let you kind of clarify that, but sports through and through. You're not very good at them, but you know them. And
what the old saying is, those who can't do teach.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I do a lot of teaching.
Yeah, exactly. This is actually Tyler and I's way of telling you.
Hey, Tyler does too. But dude, we just did in Arizona a paintball combine. So really cool because that's something that when you were first getting into paintball and always around, we didn't have this. We didn't have a combine that players from around the world can come and showcase their skills, and we have quantifiable metrics that we can grade and record to see where you're at up against the top level pros. And there's an NFL combine, NBA combine. They grade you on how long it takes you to pull up and shoot. What that looks like. So we just had a massive event in Arizona. Had 75 players come out and go through this whole system. But how important do you think something like that's based around the fundamentals and the athleticism and physical ability of a sport, how important is that for the growth of a sport? Do you have any input on that?
I do. I mean, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the only way that, in my view, and personally, 100% personal bias, I'll put that in. The only way, in my view, that something like that adds value is if the things that you're measuring have a translatable, equal to the sport itself. You can't measure sit-ups and say that that's going to translate to how you are going to be at paintball. But if you're ingrained in the sport as deep and as long as people like you guys are, you guys know what things you guys can measure that are going to have a translatable measurement to the sport itself. So any kind of combine, you can measure anything in the world, but if it doesn't translate to the thing that you want to do, it's just a number and it has no merit. But in this instance, if you guys are measuring the things that have a translatable convergence to that, so like something like a 3-cone drill, right? A 3-cone drill is a football drill that was based off of football that happens in the combine. It's probably one of the most important things that they measure at the combine. But none of us talk about a 3-cone drill. Yeah. We talk about the 40, we talk about the vertical, we talk about, bench press and things like that. A 3-cone drill in something like paintball is probably one of the most important generic tests that anyone could ever do. So understanding what the movements that happen in the sport of paintball and then developing tests to mimic those and then creating an objective scale on that is beyondly valuable, because you have historical data over time. You could go back and measure 12-year-old Marcelo and see what his times were. Probably weren't very good, but it is what it is. But you can measure across positions, you can measure across timelines, and having kind of established norms of that add tremendous value to the validity of a sport.
Yeah. And it was really cool to see at the end of the combine, the people who had the best scores. You could definitely tell that they had applied themselves also. They were working very hard, and it is translatable to the game because they were the ones who were doing really well in the paintball games as well. Mm-hmm. So it's cool to see that.
And that's when you have good tests, right? Versus when you watch the NFL combine, you see guys that are just freak workout warriors, and then you're like, well, that guy actually was like a 3rd string backup player. Yeah. He's just a freak in the gym. Well, that's not that guy's fault. That's your fault for creating a test to not measure what is important in the gym. For you guys to see that translates means that you guys have developed a system that is very translatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sports are unique, right? Your physical abilities, your athleticism will take you very far, but every single sport, no matter what it is, really, greatness is defined by the mental fortitude, the mental abilities of an individual, making good decisions. That's really what it comes down to, making better decisions than your opponent, processing the information, breaking down the game faster than they can. And we actually try to incorporate some of that in some of our metrics that we grade. So we've got a lot of stuff that is very specific, running and shooting, snap shooting, these like different gunfight heavy drills. We do grade the 40-yard dash and all that kind of stuff because it's a standardized thing, to test your athleticism. But we also do situational stuff, and we have a way to grade these players on that. And then at the end of the combine, we run a tournament for everybody to it's like an exhibition kind of thing. And Tyler's right. Yeah, a lot of the players that scored highest throughout the combine were the ones that were really standing out in the tournament. So it really is good to see that over the last couple of years, because we are kind of evolving every year, just trying to find a way to make this better and better, But it really is doing a good job of showing what kind of players, how good these players are. Like how they score on these different metrics is a direct correlation with how they perform on the field.
Yeah, I think a really cool example is, in the NFL combine, they have the Wonderlic, right? That's a test that everyone, laughs at, jokes at. They sit in a room and they answer a bunch of questions. Well, in paintball, what you just said is that somebody's ability to process under pressure or under duress or under outside stimuli. Throw somebody in an ice bath and give them a questionnaire and time them and see how quickly they're able to answer that questionnaire. That very closely replicates outside stimuli and outside, stressors and your ability to process and test things psychosocially, which is just as important, if not more important, than some of the physical things that you'll do in the sport. So there's so many ways to measure things and get creative and figure out interesting ways to categorize and quantify things that you guys are doing it. You're starting it. It's a fun process. Will you get everything right the first time? No. And guess what? There is no right. You're just going to keep figuring out and getting better and finding ways to identify talent identify upside and all of those things.
Well, it looks like we have a new aspect of BKI training. You're going to be going into the ice bath from here on, and we are going to be asking you some questions about paintball.
That's actually a really fun one. I'll be honest with you. You know, to do problem solving skills under outside duress is something that is actually used a lot in military training. To be honest with you, Navy SEAL training, training, and things like that. So it's a cool test. It's something that I didn't just make it up on the spot. It's but you know, you put people in an ice tank and you hand them a clipboard and you time them and see how long it takes them to go through it. And it's a really, really interesting outcome. And you know, I guarantee you that somebody will want to sue me after this. So please don't come after me if you guys incorporate this.
Dude, I like that Kevin Hart has that show.
The ice. I love that show.
They get in the ice bath, and I'm like, I want to know if it's a real ice bath. You know,
I think it is.
I think it is. Yeah, I do think it is. But it is funny. Get in there, and they ask him all these questions. Dude, that's a good time to talk about. Again, we've been talking about so much as far as, you know, injury prevention, types of training you should be doing for paintball, healing, recovery. Another big part of that is, you know, ice baths and, you know, something that you're big on, Rise Prime Wellness. You guys have the Cryo Chambers. How do you feel about Cryo Chambers? Maybe you can elaborate a little bit to the listeners about the importance of cold therapy.
Absolutely. I think when you take a step back and you recognize why something is used, is more valuable than looking at kind of how cool it is from the outside. So ice in and of itself is meant to constrict blood vessels, meaning it's meant to decrease blood flow. And what Tyler mentioned, blood flow has oxygen in it. So it's meant to decrease oxygen. So there's a time for that. There's a time where you don't want blood to go to an area because it's got something in it that doesn't need blood flow. So ice absolutely has its value.
What would that be? Sorry to interrupt. I just want to follow along.
So 24 to 48 hours typically after an acute injury, when your body is overreacting and overly sending inflammatory markers, is when you want to usually limit the amount of blood that goes, because your body's just I don't know. Best way to describe it is it's like someone who's freaking out, and then you tell them to not freak out. They're going to freak out even more. So just take them away from that environment so they don't freak out. So in the first 24 or 48 hours of an injury, your body's going to freak out and send inflammatory markers somewhere. So one of the best things that we do, you know, as practitioners, is we limit the things that it can send there. Narrow the bridge, you know, constrict the tunnel so that it can't send a bunch of inflammatory markers. That's the best way I can describe that.
Yeah.
Cryotherapy is interesting because on the surface, it seems like it's the same thing, right? It seems like it's like, oh, it's cold. It's like cold on steroids. It's actually not. Cryotherapy, what it does is it makes your skin so cold that your body thinks it's about to freak out. And it thinks it's about to go into hypothermia. So what it does is that it sends as much blood as it can to your heart and your lungs. Wow. And your heart and your lungs are your oxygen centers. And when you have oxygen centers, they can super infuse your blood, or kind of the way I like to describe it is legal blood doping. Wow. You put your blood with so much oxygen that as soon as you come out of the chamber and your body realizes, oh, I wasn't about to have frostbite or I wasn't about to die, I can send that blood back to my hamstring that was tight or to my shoulder that had inflammation. It now sends super oxygenated, blood-doped blood, in essence, to that area, and it flushes out all the bad things. So cryotherapy is actually closer to heat than it is to ice. It just looks like ice because it's cold, but it's not a deep tissue ice. It's ice to your extremities and to your skin. It doesn't penetrate deeper than that. Your body internally treats it as heat, and it treats it as more blood flow, more oxygenation, better healing.
Wow.
Yeah, that's fascinating, dude. I love using the cryo chamber. Speaking of, I need to get back over there in Carmel Valley and hop in that thing, huh?
Yeah.
Are you guys open right now?
We are. So because of the fact that I'm a medically managed cryotherapy unit. We're not a, we're not a boutique kind of session because I'm a medical professional who holds a license who runs a oxygen-based cryotherapy chamber. We have one in Carmel Valley, San Diego, which is kind of central San Diego here, that's been open and operating and is continued to open and operate and help people heal. We use it for our post-surgical patients. We use it for people who want to get better, faster, stronger. It's got an aesthetic beauty component to it. So, people like that. Helps with sleep and overall just helps kind of overall oxygenation. And
Wow.
it's got tremendous value.
Yeah, I love that. And that facility you have in Carmel Valley, if any of our listeners here are in San Diego, you should definitely check it out. It's one of the best facilities I've been to, and that cryo chamber is badass. So I'm gonna have to stop in, dude. Absolutely. So you said something interesting though. Would cryotherapy, would I get a similar benefit if I say go in the jacuzzi or something, or like a sauna? So it's similar to that?
It's a very similar benefit. The only comparison is that in a sauna or in a hot tub, your body just, your blood vessels dilate, meaning they get bigger. So they send more of the blood with the current oxygen level that you currently have, right? If you're at, let's say, 50% oxygen in your blood, all you're going to do is you're going to send more of that 50% blood. In cryotherapy, what you're doing is you're taking that 50% blood and turning it into 90% blood. And then you're sending more of that 90% blood. So that's really the only difference. But from an apples to apples comparison, it's much closer to heat and jacuzzi than it is to ice, but you're just sending better blood after cryotherapy.
What's a better benefit? Apples to apples, but 50% of your blood, just more of it, or 90% of your blood, but the same amount. Is it the same or
90%? No
90%?
No doubt. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. Because again, you're going to have you're going to do that heat for the jacuzzi for 10, 15, 20 minutes or so, and it's going to go away. And you're taking that 50% blood and you're opening the floodgates for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or let's say an hour. Whereas you're going to take 90% blood and you're going to open the floodgates for an hour. But then even when the floodgates close, the blood that's still coming through is still 90%.
Oh, I see. How long does it stay like that?
It's got a compounding effect. So it lasts for anywhere from 12 to 24 hours.
Wow.
So you're going to get 90% blood for 12 to 24 hours. And there's also another compounding variable on top of that if you do it frequently enough, it's got an exponential effect. So the first time, it may only be sending 90% blood for 12 hours, but the second time it's not 12 plus 12, it's 12 plus 12 times 2. And then the third time it's 12 plus 12 times 3. And it's got a compounding effect on it.
No way. Wow. That's staggering information. That's big news.
Totally.
You heard it here first. But
I mean,
that's amazing.
There's a reason all of this stuff is used by the elite level athletes, right? They, I'm LeBron, Tom Brady, all the, especially as they get older, they do all of this kind of stuff to stay in shape. I do want to touch on the sauna use as well. That's something that I've been a huge advocate for. I love the sauna. I think that it has so many different ways of healing the body, both physically and mentally. I feel like it's just an amazing tool. You agree with that? How do you feel
Absolutely. About the sauna? No, again, it's a total body way of increasing core temperature, increasing dilation, increasing blood flow that is going to have overall immense impact of your body ability to deliver oxygen. The part about the sauna that I actually personally think has a greater benefit is the breathing. Actually, so being in that kind of environment, it's very similar to an oxygen mask or an oxygen restriction mask. Is learning and being in that high heat environment and teaching your body to maximize the oxygen that's coming in and to utilize that has tremendous benefits.
How about like heat shock proteins? To me, are one of the best benefits of using the sauna because that helps your entire body heal, right?
Exactly.
It's great for the brain, great for the mind, relieves anxiety, all sorts of stuff.
Absolutely. It's got a not only does it have kind of a tissue effect, but it's got a nervous system effect to it. Whether it's your sympathetic or your parasympathetic system, it's got a nervous system effect that is very hard to replicate in another type of environment. It's actually a similar philosophy to cryotherapy. When you put your body in a fight or flight environment, it's going to do some really, really cool things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to activate certain parts of your brain or your body or your nerves or your muscles or your joints or your ligaments or your blood vessels that you can't do in a regular world. So there's some really, really cool and ingrained benefits to being in those fight or flight type of environments. Now, you don't want to do it all day, every day. Your body would freak out if you did it all the time. But there's some really, really cool benefits to it.
Oh, don't worry. We just play paintball. So we're always in fight or flight out there.
That's true. Yeah, I would use the sauna every single day if I could. That's actually it. Through these lockdowns, I feel like that is the biggest thing that I am missing. It has so many health benefits, such a wide range of things that it can help with. And so I really hope we open up soon so that
Marcelo had an Instagram movement with the sauna going on until they took the dang thing away.
Yeah, 20 minutes a day, keep the doctors away, baby. My overall well-being is truly on another level when I'm able to use the sauna all the time. Something about being able to sit in and it is kind of fight or flight. You get into that 20-25 minute range at 200 degrees, something like that. You really start testing yourself mentally because you want to get out, you want comfort, and you stay in there, you push yourself, and when you do come out of that, you just feel so much better. You feel so good. And it has some amazing long-lasting effects that is backed by, there's so many studies with, again, the heat shock proteins and the ability to heal the body, how they help the body function just so much more efficiently. So sauna is huge. Do you have sauna in any of your facilities?
No, we don't. It's more of a physical limitation. We haven't had the space to be able to integrate it. I wholeheartedly believe it. I love it. I just haven't been able to, I haven't been lucky enough to be able to get to an environment or to a setup where I've been able to integrate it. And
we might have to go in and partner in a sauna studio, bro.
Man, you let me know.
Yeah, rise up.
A sauna and burrito station.
A sauna and burrito station. Because that would be, this has been used in Asia for a long time. So the cold therapy to the sauna and back and forth, that is one of the best practices you can do as far as like recovery. When I'm over there and they have, I don't know why we don't really have those places here. There's like one in San Diego that you could go to, but I went and it's not that good. The sauna's not warm enough, and like the cold tub isn't great, but a really nice facility like that, I think would crush it.
I have to tell you about, obviously, this amazing story that plays right into this, Marcelo. Me and Oliver Lang went to Mount Shasta and did a sweat lodge, an indigenous sweat lodge.
I've heard those are awesome.
Dude, people were peeling out. They were dying. Like, people could not hang. It was pitch black in there, and your face is melting off because they're taking the hot rocks from the mountain, putting them in the fire, and then bringing them in and steaming the whole sweat lodge. And you had to go down to the ground and suck air off the ground. Otherwise, when you came up, because your face was going to melt off. But we went from that environment, and then it was like what you're talking about right here. It was like a natural one. We went from the sweat lodge, and then it was in the wintertime snowing, and we went and broke the ice in this little river, and me and Oliver jumped into the river after. I got sick for about a week after, but I think it was a really good cleanse. It really helped the body.
That's interesting. Typically something like that would strengthen your immune system. That's kind of what it's designed to do.
Tyler's now immune to COVID.
Yeah.
That's what we learned.
Makes sense.
That's amazing.
Yeah, man.
That's cool.
All right. So, okay. Another great question. Speed. So many paintball players are looking to get faster. What's the best way an athlete can train to become faster?
Do fast things.
So you're saying sprint? Mimic the actual thing.
But if you want to get faster, do things fast. And it doesn't mean that you have to get on a track and run 100 meters, and that's the only way that you're going to get faster. Just any movement that you do, try and train yourself to do that movement safely but quickly. Mm-hmm. That's literally it's not rocket science. Mm-hmm. It just is what it is. I mean, Speed is your body's ability to produce force over a shorter period of time. So just try and produce force over a shorter period of time.
And like you said, safely and effectively.
Yes,
Yeah.
and don't go crazy. Don't have a 500 pounds on a bench press and try and do that quickly and call that
Yeah.
speed. Like there's a practical component to it. But I highly challenge everyone who wants to develop speed to do it with just their body first. Just try and move your body as quickly as you can in as many different ways as you can, as fast as you can. Do that first.
Do you think it's possible for someone in their mid-20s to get noticeably faster?
100%. I
Okay.
think it's possible for somebody in their late 80s to get noticeably faster.
Yeah.
And I know that because there's thousands of studies on it.
Right, right. Yeah.
It's a very, very speed is a very easy concept compared to some of the other things that happen in our body. It's a twitch mechanism, and it's a muscle type. And that muscle type, the activation of the neuron of that muscle type can be very easily trained as long as you do that thing.
I remember reading something a long time ago, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong. Of course, that's what you're here for. Yeah, 100%. But and I'm gonna get this confused, I think. But I remember reading that there's actually some great benefit to extremely slow movements as well. Like if you're doing some sort of single leg squats, in order to help the fast twitch muscle fibers, the slower you go, the more that you'll actually put stress on those.
It's a recruitment, so it's kind of a leap in that, again, just like I said, it's transference. If you do something really, 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 really slow, will it help you at something fast? Yeah. But if you do something fast, it'll probably help you at faster. So it's a transference thing. It's not that it won't. It's a recruitment. Basically, what you're doing when you do something really slow is you're activating the nerves that are within a muscle. And some of those same nerves are the same nerves that help you go fast, but it's not all of the same nerves. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing with isometric movements. So isometric movements are movements where you're not moving, you're just clenching. So if I just clench right now really quick, that's an isometric movement. That actually will help me get faster. Will it help me get faster than doing something very fast? No. But if I clench, it activates some of the same nerves that will be activated when I try and go fast. Mm-hmm. So there is some transference. It's not all, but there's some.
Yeah. Okay.
And those are like those next step type of things you can be doing at home when you're not at the gym, when you're not at the park, when you're not training. You can be taking those next levels at home.
Yeah, and that's I think the concept of cross training, the concept of cross training got lost somewhere along the way. Like cross training is doing different things, but cross training can also mean like sitting on a couch and activating your quad for a little bit just to kind of turn on your quad and then resting. That's cross training. Does that look like coming out of a bunker? No. But is it cross training? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I love that.
Have you ever had the opportunity to work with like some pro athletes, or I'm sure college players and things like that? Any shout outs that you want to give to some of those players or anything like that?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been lucky enough to do the rehab for a couple of high level athletes, do consulting for high level organizations, and work with a good amount of athletes. I think the common thread there is that, I think the thing I'll always remind people is they're just like us.
Yeah.
We may put them on a pedestal, and, I'm not a name dropper, but imagine some of the highest of the highest. I've had the privilege to work with them.
Awesome.
And they're not that much different than Marcelo.
Yeah.
They're much cooler, and I significantly prefer them as friends, but they're not that much different. I think the thing that separates them is their drive. Yeah. And I think having the ability to work with someone like that is just as, if not more, more rewarding than working with Aunt Sally who wants to pick up her granddaughter. But there's some really, really cool high-level athletes. There's also some jerks.
Yeah.
There's also some people that aren't that much fun and aren't that great to be around. But there's some pretty cool high-level people in a lot of industries. I mean, you'd be surprised. I think a perfect analogy. I've probably worked with two of the top 5 greatest NBA players of all time. and people that I respect. I love basketball to my heart of hearts.
Yeah.
But actually, one of the coolest people I've ever worked with is the reigning multiple speed walking champion in the Olympics.
Wow.
Like, in most worlds, those two people wouldn't be comparable. But that speed walking person had such cool biomechanics, and I thought that was such a interesting rehab that was almost, if not more fun than the thing that I enjoy doing for fun and playing basketball. So
Yeah.
I think you pigeonhole yourself when you brand yourself as the trainer to the stars or the therapist to the stars. Like, it doesn't matter. They are who they are. Yeah, there's some perks that come along with it. There's some cool
We're all
people.
people. Yeah. Absolutely.
100%. Navid, I just real quick, I want to tie up the speed training thing so that the listeners can have maybe a little more direction in that. Uphill sprints, probably the best thing to do to get fast then?
It's probably one of the better things to do, because not only are you taking a demand that you're asking your body to do, but you're asking it to do it in a stimuli that's going to ask more of that demand. That's the uphill. And then, kind of like the mask, when you go into the real world, you're better able to utilize the lack of that restriction. So taking the mask off is being able to better utilize oxygen with the lack of oxygen. When you take the hill away, being able to better utilize your speed against the lack of an environment to restrict and limit your speed.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's good for the listeners. It really is. Again, we get hit up all the time on things they could do to become faster and better paintball athletes. And we have a pretty universal response amongst dynasty players, especially, and that's uphill sprints, a lot of stretching, plyometrics, things like that, body weight exercises. So it's really good to hear somebody of your stature and qualifications on the same page with that.
I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even though you just totally dissed me, it's all good.
That's what I'm here for.
That's a regular occurrence with you guys.
I love it. Man, dude, we have had some amazing nuggets in this this conversation so far, dude. I know that so many paintball players are really going to benefit from this. I feel like paintball, as it moves into the future, is a sport that's really trying to be taken seriously. And in order to do that, you have to be able to look on TV and see the immediate separation, right? That's what attracts attention from the normal, viewer. You can look at an NFL player, their size, their speed, their build, and you already know why they're elite, right? They're separated from the majority of people. Paintball, size and stuff like that isn't what stands out. But the way we move around the field should be highlighted, because it is one of the hardest things to do. And so to us, to Tyler and myself, it's a really important topic of conversation to continue to push and continue to encourage the next generation of players to understand, because it's so valuable. So, man, a lot of this stuff has just been incredibly insightful.
Absolutely. Just having your input on this is fundamental for the way that we're moving this sport into the future. Like, because we still have a big job ahead of us. We have to legitimize paintball. It has not been legitimized in the real world to the masses. It's still something that people do in the woods or this, that, and the other, but it is one of the most difficult sports on the planet. And I can safely say that because I've played all of them and I love all sports, but paintball just has a different component to it. And it's cool to hear all of your thoughts on all that. So we appreciate you so much, man.
Of course, guys. And again, I think the only way that a sport like paintball becomes legitimized in the eyes of the world is when you have people like yourselves kind of on the forefront who've had the experience, but also humble enough to listen to other walks of life, listen to other people, and be able to present the overall value of the sport, whether it be internally, externally, or whatever it may be. So I think that while you guys, feel like you have a massive challenge ahead of you guys, I think the rest of the world should feel grateful that they have people like you as, ambassadors for the sport or as champions for the sport. I'm not going to say Ryan's name because he's not on here, so he's not a champion.
Dude,
Oh, Greeny.
we love that,
Oh,
man.
man. Yeah, we do indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed, man.
Yeah, it's
But
been
in fact,
fun, brother. It has been a fun journey for both of us here. We both started out as young bucks in the game and became friends as young kids, and still are best friends to this day, which is a really special thing. And it's a fun journey. We do, sometimes it's a staggering journey where we're like, which way is up? But we just keep enjoying the game and playing the game and having fun and enjoying the experience, and that's all you can ask for, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got maybe one more question, maybe a couple more, but one.
I got one more too.
There
Yeah.
we go. Okay, nice. And it's kind of putting you in the trick bag, but it's maybe a fun one for the listeners, especially you've worked with high profile athletes, freaks of nature, people that can do things that majority of humans can't physically. What do you think's more important to an athlete, their mental ability or their physical ability? Yeah.
It was easy. I mean, you can be born with something physically. I don't think that you can be born with anything mentally. That takes training and that takes time. And I think time and time again, you've seen people that haven't been born with something physically and they've still excelled because of the mental component of it. So I don't think it's even a question.
Always.
Do you think you could leave our listeners with like a cool book that you might have read recently or in the past that would help keep their mentality sharp moving into like an athletic realm like we do in paintball? Anything like that? Or any book at all? I'm kind of curious. I would like to. I'm always.
Can't be Winnie the Pooh.
That's actually fine. Dr. Seuss. No, I'm just kidding.
Green eggs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it translates a little bit to paintball, but I think it translates more into kind of mindset and mind frame athletically. There's a very famous, high respected college basketball coach by the name of Dean Smith, and he wrote a book called The Carolina Way. He's somebody who I'm biased, but he's somebody who gets overlooked sometimes. And when you look at the greats of coaching, you look at John Wooden and some of the other people that get the high accolades. But Dean Smith had an approach to creating environments and cultures and creating a mindset that I thought was very unique. And it's something that, I personally took a lot through time. So I think that's a phenomenal book. And then another book, it may be a little cliche, but I think it, going back to the professional athlete kind of mindset and some of the people that, I've had the opportunity to work with or speak with and things like that. I think a lot of people have heard of this book, but I don't think a lot of people have taken the time to go through this book. And that's The Art of War. I think that book, we are lucky enough and blessed enough to be in an environment where we're sitting in front of computers with headphones on and staring at each other and chatting with each other. We're not in war, but if you can understand a war mindset, the ability to translate that to whatever it is that you're doing in life is so unique. And so I think the Sun Tzu, The Art of War, is probably one of the other more unique books that, feed into the mindset and the mental capacity of what it takes to be successful.
I love that, dude. Thank you very much. I'm definitely going to check out that Dean Smith, The Carolina Way. My middle name is Dean. So
there you go.
Yeah, it's only appropriate that I check this book out.
Yeah, no, you'll like it. He's a great man.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Navid, my brother, I do got to plug the Instagram for R.I.S.E. It's rise_PT. You guys should give them a follow. You guys have a ton of cool stuff on there. All of your staff, they put videos on there all the time.
What is it? One more time. What is
rise_PT for physical therapy. Right, Navid? That's it. Yeah.
I honestly, I don't even know. I'm gonna have to.
It's so funny. I remember when you first created it. Well, actually, I think I was a huge advocate of you getting on social media like 5 or 6, maybe 7 years ago. And,
it's rise_PT.
The funniest thing is I still actually have access to all of your PT
you should. I mean,
social,
I have a skill set, and social media is not my skill set. It is what it is. It's funny. This would be a funny story. So I think there's value in social media has in a tremendous amount of reach and things like that. Mm-hmm. I actually got mad at one of my people the other day because they posted something about a new location. that I didn't want people to know that we were going to be in, because I was like, man, I need to go in and I need to create relationship with doctors and get referrals and get people in the door. And you now told the world that we were going to be in there, and I am upset. So it just goes to tell you like how old school I am. Like, I get it. I'm on Instagram all the time. I watch it, but
Hey, there's something special about that old school way too, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Hey, everybody, go follow rise_PT. They're at 897 followers. Let's get them to 900 and way beyond that, and help support them in any way we can.
Well, the biggest thing is there's a lot of stuff that people can benefit from that page, actually. A lot of functional movement. Again, I follow the page, and I constantly am watching all the different trainers and therapists in there doing stuff that I take to the gym and perform on my own. So that's incredibly badass. It's a cool piece of content that users can absorb. And it's all, very beneficial to what we're talking about: longevity, functionality, all this kind of stuff. So that is amazing. I won't tell them about your personal Instagram, because my favorite pup, well, second favorite pup. I have a new favorite pup. Don't tell Jasmine, but I know.
Heartbreak.
The girlfriend's got a pup. Young Piper. Not much love for her, but yeah. In any case, where was I going with that stupid story? Navid, thank you, man. This was an awesome one. The listeners are really going to benefit from this conversation, and it was awesome to.
I appreciate you guys. I thank you for having me. It was fun. It was good to chat, but more than anything, it's good to be around good people and learn from them and have a good time.
What an honor to have you on, Navid.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Sorry, Marsh was saying you guys are going to get some coffee soon, and brother, we appreciate you so much, and we can't wait to chat with you again soon.
Do it.
I said we're going to go play some golf soon.
Oh, wow.
Putting it out to the world. Navid, by the way, is your back healed, Navid? I know you were having some back issues. Can you play some golf?
I can play. I never said I can play well, but I said I can play.
All right. Perfect. We're on the same page, dude. I look forward to it, man. We'll be in touch.
It'll be fun,
guys.
guys.
Stay safe out there, okay, bud?
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
It's right on, dude.
Take care, man.
You too.
All right. That was a good one. That was really fantastic. My boy Navid is dynamite, and I think he really shed light on a ton of really valuable things for all of the listeners. I hope you guys can take that stuff to your next practice and start implementing some of these practices in your training and in your preparation for tournaments, and you'll start to see benefits. You really will. Major shout out to all of our PTG players, the winner circle as we call it. Major love to you guys. Thank you guys so much for the support. You guys can become a supporter by heading over to our website, ptgpaintball.com, and following the Patreon link. We are doing a ton of really cool things for you as well. We have a bunch of different tiers with different packages and gifts, and we're in the middle of innovating that and making sure that we bring you guys the coolest, most dynamite stuff. Some of it will be geared around some, behind the scenes content, and other stuff is geared around just community. We have a private chat that if you become a member of the winner circle, you will be invited. You will be able to join this private chat group and communicate with us and the fellow PTG players in there and have discussion, ask whatever you want, and we are happy to help. We want to see you guys grow and do well. So again, head over to ptgpaintball.com. You can listen to all of our episodes on there. You can watch the episodes as well, and you can check out any merch and become a supporter of the show. Again, we are incredibly thankful for you. All right, everybody, we will see you very, very soon.